sentence you to life in prison. You didn't even have a chance to tell your side of the story. You'd feel really angry. So habeas corpus is a law in progressive countries. So when somebody accuses someone else of a crime, the judge bangs his gavel on his table and screams, "Habeas corpus, bring me the body," right? And you are brought before the judge to defend yourself. Tell your side of the story, right? And then the judge will hear you and say, well, okay, sounds like you're innocent. Get out of my court. Okay, go on your way. So, pretty progressive for its time, 1852. Okay, and another very progressive item in our Hawaiian Constitution is something talking about slavery, which was a huge, huge issue, not just in America and on the verge of the Civil War in 1852, around the world. Many, many nations that had engaged in it had already given it up, and the United States is still fighting over it. Um, but it addresses slavery in the Hawaiian Islands and says slavery shall, under no circumstances whatever, be tolerated in the Hawaiian Islands. Whenever a slave shall enter Hawaiian territory, he shall be free. No person who imports a slave or slaves into the king's dominions shall ever enjoy any civil or political rights in his realm. Huge. That is huge. So that means if a slave makes it to Hawaiian territory, they're free. If a person imports a slave, that person becomes a slave or really loses all of their rights. So pretty progressive stuff. Um, and again, reinforcing this Hawaiian hybrid into the articles of the Constitution. No person shall ever succeed to the throne unless he be a descendant of the aboriginal stock of Ali'is. Okay, and notice the word aboriginal there, which is sort of contrasted to the word indigenous. Okay, so aboriginal, that language, that word, places this under state theory. Okay, this is kind of neat. If everybody reads this and sort of decides for themselves if they lived in 1852, would they have been eligible to vote? Assuming everybody's been here for a year. So every male subject of His Majesty, whether native or naturalized, and every denizen who shall have paid his taxes, who shall have attained the full age of 20 years. So sort of ask yourself, would you have been able to vote if you lived in 1852? 1864, this is kind of one of my favorite articles right here. No person shall ever sit upon the throne who has been convicted of any infamous crime, who is insane or an idiot. That cracks me up every time. I wish we could see this in other constitutions. Okay, so 1864 Constitution. We're not going to read through this whole thing. You guys can pause and read it. But basically, it really highlights the fact how times have changed from the 1840 Constitution to the 1852 Constitution to the 1864 Constitution. They get progressively more complex, and that's because times have changed. Times change, things change, and with the influx of more foreigners onto Hawaiian soil, it needed to change. Okay, so it tells you now more direct lines of lineage and descent and who can actually assume the throne. Okay, and again, same one here. Okay, so three things to remember about what we're talking about here, just to sort of recap before we move forward, is that it's unique. It is the only place like it in the world. Okay, and that's why we're going through so much setup just to get into the real meat of what's going on in this presentation because it is unique. Okay, Hawaii's history, when compared to places, other places around the world, there's no other place like it. What happened here in Hawaii? Okay, it's very, very unique. Number two, it's extreme, and extreme and unique go together, right? It's been 118 years or 124 years, depend on where you take your starting point of occupation. That is unique and that is extreme. Okay, 118 years. People get colonized for 50 years, 20 years, right? Occupied for even less than that, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, but 118 years of occupation. Now think back of occupation, what theory that belongs under. And it's a case of amnesia. Okay, because it's unique, because it's extreme, it's the greatest case of amnesia ever that has happened. Because everyone forgot what happened to Hawaii's history over the 118 years. Okay, it was a case of historical amnesia. Hawaii forgot. We forgot. Our own people forgot. The U.S. forgot, and the world forgot. Okay, that's pretty amazing. So here we go. Hawaii becoming a nation state. Let's throw all three of these up here. Okay. So again, back to the list, back to what they wanted to accomplish. Okay. They knew they had to set up the government, make treaties, join the family of nations. This kind of again ties into our five elements. Okay. Well, we set up our government, monarchy, constitution, make friends, um, treaty is a contract. So we were out there making treaties, and making treaties is kind of like making friends, right? Because treaties exist between nations, and the way you make treaties and make friends with other nations is through diplomacy, international relations, and it's like making friends. You go and you visit, and you have dinners and drink a lot of wine and dance and whatever else you do, and you sort of um, get that person to make an agreement with you that's mutually beneficial and join the family of nations. Now, this is very important, okay? We're thinking now back in 1843, back in the 1840s. International law, the family of nations, was very, very different than it is today. And it's very important that we note that. And it's very important that we apply the standards of those days when looking at those days. Okay, so in order to join the family of nations, you need to have been invited back then. Okay, so you can't just waltz in and say, "Hi, I'm the Hawaiian Kingdom. Where's my seat?" No, you have to be invited in, and you had to be invited in by a minimum of three powerful nations. Okay, Hawaii is going to be the first non-European nation allowed into the family. And the last bullet, which is kind of a joke, but it's not really, is that the family of nations back then were like the mafia, okay? And they were like the mafia in that one, you had to get invited. Two, you needed a minimum of three powerful nations, which, kind of like mafia style, you needed to be invited in by powerful members of that organization, right? And like the mafia, once you're in, you can't leave alive, okay? And that was true of the family of nations back then. Legally speaking, once you join the family, the only way you can leave is through legal death, okay? And like the mafia, they don't like you leaving, so they'll go out and make sure that happens, okay? So again, let's recap our five elements again, and how our checklist is coming along. So we define territory, population, government, treaties, and government happened with the 1840 constitutions. Okay. Also, our 1852 and 1854 constitutions. We took care of government, capacity to enter relations, and number five is going to happen in 1843 with something called the Anglo-Franco Proclamation. Okay. So let's look at it graphically again, joining the family of nations. And I think here we go. Okay. So we have state theory and colonial theory. Okay. So now we're going to fuse the two together and see how they interact. So again, state theory, right? If you're a nation state, like the United States, JPN, Japan, Iraq, France, the UK, right? You're a nation state. If you're a triangle, you're part of colonial theory, which means that these states, these circles can go out and colonize you. They can attack you and put them inside of themselves, and you become their territory. Okay? For a state theory says that no state can attack another state. Okay? So you had to join. So if you look at the triangle on the bottom left that says TUR, which stands for Turkey, okay, we're going to see what happens in 1945. Well, Turkey becomes a state. Okay, so here's how it happens. Our triangle moves, gets invited into the family, and boom, becomes a circle. Now it's under state theory and no longer under colonial theory. Okay, and that's what's going to happen to the HI over there, the Hawaii. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, again, back to our frameworks, just to make this